everyone. So, I decided very spontaneously that I'm going to start a Drunk Anatomy with Alex cast. Except that I don't really drink, so it's going to be more like a caffeinated anatomy with a lot of energy drink. But, just so the name's not entirely, false advertising, I had to get a little bit of brandy. We'll pretend this is Jägermeister and that this is Red Bull, and this is my hipster version of a deconstructed Jaeger bomb. I kill myself. Does not taste like Jägermeister. Alright, let's get started. So, I'm going to start with the number one topic in anatomy that I hate the absolute most. Blood vessels. I hate them. I hate them. There's so many of them. And here's, you know what the kicker is? It'll start one place and have one name. And then it'll go, and then it's the same thing, but it has a different name now. Why? Because fuck med students, that's why. And this goes for nerves, veins, and arteries. All just, hey, let's just change the name. Because why not? The way my school sets it up, because I know most of you guys are probably in the States, and I don't really know how things work over there. As a matter of fact, I don't even think your anatomy exams are oral. Ours are oral, which for me really sucks. And then we have about 3 different categories per semester that we get tested in. Last semester we got tested in first the forelimb, then the hind limb, and then the trunk of the animal. We went from the skull down the vertebrae all the way down, and did that. And then this semester we're doing the thoracic cavity, the abdominal cavity, and then we're going to do the pelvic cavity. And right now we're on the thoracic cavity. So because that exam's coming up pretty soon, and because I don't know nearly enough for this exam, I decided to cover the most hated topic, the one that I'm probably, if I get tested in, I'm probably going to flunk in. And that is the blood vessels of the abdominal cavity, or as it's also known, cavum abdominis. Oh, because here's another fun fact. In Germany, you have to know everything in Latin. And not just oh yeah, it's the nasal or the lacrimal process. No. It has to be processus zygomaticus, blah, 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 blah. With all the funny little endings and declinations and... So, not only do I have to memorize which bone goes where and what part is on it and what this little bump here means, because, yes, even the itty-bitty little bump that looks like a wart on a bone, you have to know what that's called too. And not only do you have to know it, no, you have to know it in Latin with the right ending. And mostly genitive endings. Yay. So, anyway, let's start over here. And no, I cannot do this without my notes because I'm not that good of a student. So, basically, what we have is... Oh, I can't say we have. So, here's another fun fact. Professors hate it when you say we have, because we don't have anything. It's an animal, not a human. So, it's not we have, it's the animal has. Or here, we can see what the animal has. But never we have here. So, fun drinking game. Every time I say we have, take a shot. Or don't. You'll probably die of alcohol poisoning. Because, just old habits die hard, something like that. Can't come out. Oh. So, here's the thing. I hate public speaking. I never used to. When I was a little kid, I'd go up to the front and I'd be like, I'm gonna give you guys a show and you're gonna love it because I'm adorable. And then over years, I realized, boy, everyone sucks, everything sucks, I suck, and got really nervous. And for some reason, when it comes to anatomy, I've done video logs in the past, for dogs and stuff. But when it comes to speaking about anatomy, I guess because it's a subject that I obviously don't know so much in, or I know virtually nothing in, it makes me more nervous as a whole. So even if I'm just talking to my computer screen or to my closet, I'm just like, I'm not good at putting words in sentence thing. So let's see if I can get past that. So basically, you have the thoracic cavity. So you have the thoracic cavity, and then you have the abdominal cavity, and then the pelvis. So again, we're on the abdominal cavity, and so through the body, you have this main aorta, like this really huge thing, and from the aorta come all the other arteries. They just come shooting out, all over the place, and then they have other branches, and they just keep branching out, and those branches all have really cool names. And in the abdominal cavity from the aorta, there's 3 like major branches that come out of the aorta, and the first one is the arteria celiaca, I think. I can never remember whether it's it's kind of like celiac disease, but not really the way it's pronounced. Yep, there we go. Like celiaca. I learned this like with a German pronunciation in Latin, so I have no idea how you would pronounce Latin with an American accent. But here we are. And so that's one. And then you have the artery mesenterica cranialis, which is basically the cranial mesenteric artery, which kind of twirls around in the intestinal tract, and it creates what they call the Gekräusewurzel in German, which is, yeah, it's like a root, like a twisty little root thing, and so, and that root is actually called Radix mesenterii, yeah, cranial. And then there's also the exact same thing, except it's cauda. And cranial and caudal are basically just, cranial towards the head and caudal towards the rump. So those are just directional descriptors that you use in anatomy. And so those are the 3. You have basically, so the first one would be the celiaca, and then the mesenterica cranialis, and then mesenterica caudalis. So the celiaca is the one that's pretty much responsible for the stomach and spleen. And so you have 3 major branches coming out of that branch first. You have the gastrica sinistra, and then you have the arteria hepatica, and then arteria linealis. So the artery linealis is the one that goes to the spleen, because Latin for spleen goes there. In that sense, the Latin's actually pretty helpful, because usually if an artery or a nerve or a vein is going to a specific organ or in a specific area, chances are it's some bizarre mashed together version of those 2 or 3 names in Latin. So after a while you start to, kind of guess like, gee, I wonder what this one's called. And then you just kind of mash up the endings and try to remember how you actually end it. Like, pancreatico duodenalis. Pancreas, duodenum, pancreatico duodenalis. Say that 5 times fast. So yeah, then you have the celiaca, and then it goes down, and okay, and that goes into the arteria gastrica sinistra. Sinister and dexter are basically left and right in Latin. Because why say left and right when you can say sinistra and dexter? But it's not always sinistra and dexter. Sometimes it's sinistra or dextra, or sinister and dexter, or even sinistrum and dextrum. Because why make things easy for vet students? It's not like we have enough to do. Anyway, so moving on from that, out of the arteria hepatica, you have arteria gastrica dextra, which is really funny because you have sinistra, gastrica sinistra, which comes out of the celiaca, but gastrica dextra comes out of the hepatica, which has already come from the celiaca. Yeah. Does that make sense? No, right? Not at all. Doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. And out of the hepatica also comes the gastrioepiploica dextra. What? Gastrioepiploica dextra. That is a real word that I have to say with a straight face in a test. Then you also have, if you have a dextra, you usually have a sinistra. So you also have the gastrioepiploica sinistra. The problem is that it kind of comes out of the lineal artery and not the... So the right one comes out of the hepatic artery and the left one comes out of the lineal artery. Because you can't ask yourself why. You just, at some point, you give up. Because if you try and find out why, you'll just decide that at some point evolution said, hey, do you know what would be a real fun thing to do? Fuck up that student's life. The veins here, fortunately, are basically identical to the arteries. So, like, if you have a lineal artery, you have a lineal vein, and they're, like, right next to each other. And this is, like, almost completely true for the entire abdominal cavity. A big main difference would be the vena portae, which is, like, the portal vein. Sounds a lot cooler than it is. It's just like a really big vein that does a lot of really cool stuff in the body. Yes. Oh yeah, also, all of this that I'm telling you right now, all of this applies to animals that have a simple, one cavity stomach. So you have stomachs, like normal stomachs, and then you have the ruminant stomachs, which have, like, multiple little holes, things in it. Chambers, that's the word. So this is for one-chambered stomachs that are, simple one-chambered stomachs. If you have, like, a ruminant stomach, then fuck all of this. You have about a bajillion more things you need to know about this, but I'm not gonna go into that. No. Okay, so that's pretty much all there for the stomach. So then moving along to the intestines. So that's the second major artery that comes out of, the big aorta. And this is the cranial one. So the cranial one. It also has a lot of really fancy schmancy branches that it, kind of lets out. And I'm getting to that. I need my notes because I can't pronounce any of it to save my fucking life. I can tell. Excellent student. Oh wait, no, this one's in the book. I take it back. Let's see. Okay. Oh, here's a great picture. Can you see? So, like, this is basically... Oops, no, I switched the page. So, here's the first one. That's the second one, and that's the third one. So, we're on this one right here. We just did that one. So, now we're going to do this one right here. And why bother? Nope. Those are all nerves. I'm not even going to touch on the nerves. It just takes too many years off of my life. So, then we also have, the lymphatic system. The lymph node thingies we have everywhere. Those have a whole separate system. That's another fun thing you'll learn someday. Nope, it's not in here. Alright, so moving on. The book. Okay, so you have this big cranial... Oh, there it is. See that? So this is, the big root thingy that lets out a whole bunch of branches. So it lets out the multiple arteriae jejunales. Now, jejunales is pretty easy because it's named after the jejunum, which is part of the small intestine, which, while we're at it, let's go through the intestine. So you have the small intestine, which is divided into basically 3 sections. You have the duodenum, then you have the jejunum, which is the largest part, and I mean, it's just long. It's super long. Like at a horse, you can like spend all day long moving through this. I mean, it could be like really, really long. And then you have the ileum, which is like this small little part, which kind of goes into the larger intestine. So that's where, you know, it goes over. So the arteria jejunalis, which are just multiple branches that don't have, like, they're all called that, but they're like different branches. So you basically have 2 different strands that have the same name. And those, you know, like I said, as kind of are responsible for the jejunum part of the intestine. And then you have the ilii, which is also plural. And so those are responsible for the ileum, which is this bitty little section of the intestine. And also a ramus ilii, no, ilios, my bad. See? Ramus ilios, arteriae ilii. It's like an episode of The Hobbit. And I don't really know why they have one separate branch. I mean, they're all responsible for the ileum, which is too small of a part to have that many branches. Like, that itty bitty little part should not have that many arterial branches, period. But it has 2 separate, multiple branches. And then you have the artery colica media. Media is just like in the middle. Medium one. It's not really medium, it's in the middle. So like the middle colic artery, let's put it that way. And then you also have the right one, so the arteria colica dextra, and then you have the what? Ah yes. Cecalis lateralis et medialis. Lateral and medial artery. Isn't that much nicer when you just say the lateral and medial colic artery, not arteria cecalis lateralis et medialis? Anyway, so that's basically the ones responsible for the, you know, so those are the ones that come out of the cranial mix. Then we have the caudal mix, which is the final large branch. Oh, right, I probably should have mentioned this. So, you know those jejunal arteries that I mentioned, those branches? Well, out of that one comes another branch, which is the arteria pancreatico-duodenalis. That's the one I mentioned before, the one that's really fun to say. So that one is kind of where the pancreas and the duodenum is, basically. There's a caudal and a cranial one. Oh, and here's a fun fact. The caudal one comes out from the jejunalis artery, but the cranial one actually comes from the lineal artery, which comes from, as we learned before, the celiac artery that's responsible for the stomach. So actually, this whole twisted thing, the caudal one comes from the normal branch here in its little section. So if like you were going to try and section it with the, the celiac artery for the stomach and spleen, and the cranial mesenteric artery for this little section, and the caudal one for another section, no, fuck you, because the pancreoduodenalis caudalis comes from where it's supposed to come from, but the cranial one comes from way over there, from a whole different system. So you have to follow, it goes from there all the way down, and then up there, and this one comes from here, and it goes, so it's like this, and then we have the cranial and the caudal, but they get the same name, even though they don't have the same origin. Why? What? So, alright, coming to the caudal. So again, you have the abdominal aorta, and the mesenteric caudal comes from that aorta. And basically it's just responsible for the descending colon. That's it, pretty much. Except for, you know, all the bajillion branches. And it splits up into the Arteria colica sinistra and its itty bitty branches, and the Arteria rectalis cranialis and its itty bitty little branches, which is basically the left colic artery and the cranial rectal artery. So the caudal mesenteric artery splits up in the cranial rectal artery and the left colic artery. Trying to keep track, by the way, of which one's cranial and which one's caudal and which one's left and which one's right and which one's lateral and which one's medial and which one's dorsal and which one's ventral is a full-time job. Blah, 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 those branches. And like I said, yeah, the veins are basically the exact same thing. And the rest isn't part of this section. It'll be on it. Well, actually, what I decided was, if I'm supposed to be doing alcohol, and like I said, I don't really drink, for these, I'm probably going to just film multiple ones on the same day, but put them into little segments and then space them out. So if next week's podcast, actually this is more of a video cast. Next week's video cast is me wearing the exact same clothing. That's because I'm about to do it in like 5 minutes. So anyway, I hope you learned something, because I sure as hell didn't. And like I said, if there's anything that's incorrect or unfactual or just downright bullshit, please feel free to let me know. You know, funny thing I heard, and it's totally true, is if you want advice on the internet, don't ask for advice. No one's gonna fucking give you advice. No, what you do is you pretend you know the answer and give it out, and then watch as everyone corrects you. That's how you get results. So here's my hoping that everything that I said, hey, maybe it's total bullshit, but hey, I'm sure, you know, all the people who know the better answers will come out and feel free to correct me. So that's it. That was drunken disorderly conduct. No, drunken disorderly anatomy. Both. Disorderly conduct, disorderly anatomy. Who knows what the hell I'm doing here with Alex. Please join us next week at the same time as we go over the... Wait, what am I going to do next time? The liver? Stomach? I'll surprise you. Bye!